can we just self-operate the one we got? We got 22.
work session to order, and got a few things on our agenda to discuss, and very much glad to see you here this morning. If we would start the meeting, if you'd join me with a pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Looks like we have some visitors this morning. I think we have Stamping Ground Commissioner Cody Meadows and his bride Channing with us. Thanks for being here, and thanks for your service.
Channing also serves on the Board of Adjustments.
Yes,
So.
absolutely.
Thank you for your confidence.
Well, 100% confidence in that. No. And we have, first thing we want to talk about, we have a survey that I sent out and shared yesterday that Sandra Jean and I have been working on. As we've discussed, Senate Bill 63 became effective June 27th. And cities and counties in Kentucky can adopt an ordinance permitting street legal special purpose vehicles to operate. And those street legal special purpose vehicles are what most people call ATVs, UTVs. They have a roll cage. They have to have blinkers. They have to have safety harness, safety belts, a variety of safety items on that vehicle. But I've heard from two individuals that support making this ordinance that would allow these to operate. But I just really think it's very important for us to try to get more feedback from the community. So one of the best ways, I think, is sharing a questionnaire on social media that's linked, that has a link to it, to a Google form that everybody can look at and fill out. And I just wanted to pass this by you all before we publish it, ask you all if you think we need any additional questions or if we need to omit anything. And that way we have an opportunity to get more feedback and then make an informed decision as we go forward. So, the first thing first, are you a resident of Scott County, Kentucky? Yes or no? That's pretty easy. But I did want to hear if there was a trend from residents that live in Georgetown, Stamping Ground, or Sadieville. Thought that was very important to put on there, so we could look at that. Do you own or operate a street legal special purpose vehicle? Just seeing it, how many people out there have it. In general, do you support the fiscal court adopting an ordinance to allow street legal SPVs on certain county roads? And just kind of strongly support, somewhat support, down through strongly oppose. What do you see as potential benefits of allowing street legal special purpose vehicles on Scott County roads? In eastern Kentucky, this is kind of where this originated, in my opinion, where they have a lot of trails and people want to be able to go from a campground to a trailhead and not get out of their SPV. So, what's the benefits here in Scott County? Convenience for local travel, tourism and economic impact. If they're legal, I guess somebody could open up a trail somewhere, possibly. Lower vehicle costs for rural residents, recreation and outdoor access, other put on there. And then what concerns or potential drawbacks do you have? Citing road safety, vehicle noise, enforcement challenges, disruption of local traffic, damage to roads or infrastructure or other. And then I think pretty much this one question, I had some questions about myself. If allowed, what restrictions or requirements would you support? Well, the law mandates certain pieces, but I don't think it mandates helmets. And Sheriff Nettles, it does not mandate helmets. You got to have a legal driver's license, and then any roads, restricted roads, no highways above 45 miles per hour. Is that that's in the? I think that's in the Senate Bill 63.
I don't know if that's in there.
You don't think that's in there?
No limited access for like
Yeah,
interstates,
like the
interstates or
interstate.
parkways.
Yeah.
All right. But that's above, like, but those are rated above 45. I think that's where that came from.
But you could.
So should
put
we,
it in there like that if you want to.
and then should we alter that question then?
Judge, I may be in the beginning, somewhere put a definition of what a street legal TV is.
Well, if you read the email, in my email to you, we'll have on the post a descriptor.
Okay.
And there'll be 2 visuals. I don't know if you remember the last time I passed out a visual that had kind of what it looked like. So, if I need to reword restricted roads,
Well, JR, did you say, I'm sorry to interrupt you, did you say the other day that the county, or Jeremy, are the county highways, are they 45 unless otherwise posted?
35.
Or 35.
Posted at a lower speed limit.
so any county road it would be legal on if we adopted the ordinance.
And technically state road as well.
Any state road as well, like US 25,
Yes.
US 460.
Yes.
Well, here's a question on those lines. And so, would the city have to pass an ordinance too?
So the city, in order to make it, the city can opt in.
That's maybe one thing I would clarify is this,
Yeah.
this is not all roads that are in Scott County. This would not include subdivisions and city stuff within
So,
the
so we
city.
need to put a disclaimer saying that
I can't imagine too many people.
Sadieville and Stamping Ground
And Georgetown.
in Georgetown will have to make they'll have to make a decision if they want to allow or not. And really, if they don't have to do anything. But in order to make it legal, they have to adopt an ordinance making it legal. So we probably need to make sure that disclaimer is up there at the top.
Well, you just also used the word subdivisions, and that's been a point of discussion. Do you want to ask something about that? Because
Well, I put up at the top, this ordinance would not be in effect in like private gated communities or where private roads are.
Well, let's just use Coleridge, for example, which is in my district, which is not in the city. And I don't know if those neighbors, and I'll need to talk to some of those people, if they're gonna want, it's gonna be hard to enforce, I think, but UTVs running up and down the road.
Could the HOAs
It's a-
override this?
It's a public street. Well, it depends
No, I
on
don't think HOA can override it.
That's, I don't think so.
because it's a public
we have to
road.
carve it out.
Any public road that's in the county.
Yeah.
Like
Which that would be.
Victoria
Like
States would be
Victoria
an
States would be
exception.
an example.
Victoria States is the outlier.
But
Unless
even
you-
then, I don't know when HOA has the teeth to, are they gonna put a lien on somebody's house because they're following a state law to go out and ride a UTV?
Well, I think what you'd have to do, Kelly, in drafting the ordinance, like if you wanted to exempt Victoria States or whatever, you could put in the ordinance, this doesn't apply to, whatever subdivision.
Name streets, possibly.
Yeah, for named streets.
Hey, Davidson waiting.
Sorry.
All right. Hey, Chip, if you could. There we go. But, the whole purpose of what we're doing here is just to try to get feedback from a broader range of folks. And most of the time, there's things that's brought to light that we haven't thought about or hadn't came up. So, going down through there, question number 8, do you believe SPVs would have a positive, negative, or neutral effect on the quality of life? And then please share any additional thoughts. And this is going to be on a Google form. When it's submitted, it's just automatically, tallied and put together very easily to look at. So what I'm hearing from you, we need to make sure that at the top we say, Georgetown, Sadieville, Stamping Ground, we'll all have to consider an ordinance to allow the operation of street legal special purpose vehicles on city streets. This is only for county roads outside of those areas.
Well, I'm assuming you're gonna tag the Senate Bill 63 where they could click on it and go read it themselves.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Judge, I have a
And they
question.
should, because that'll answer a lot of questions.
I have a question.
But they can't.
Well, but
Yes,
give
sir.
them the opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question and or concern, I guess, more concern. I'm all about data, working data every day, but good data in is good data out. There's nothing that restricts this form, from what I can tell, from one submission or any data about me. So if I really wanted it or didn't want it, I could just sit there all day and just submit. I don't know that we're gonna get great data without knowing.
Well, do you do nothing or do you do this?
Well, can we ask what's your address or what's your email or something to at least be able to say, these are all unique entries? I would suggest maybe email. That's a little bit, I don't know that,
If somebody wants to get on and like, I guess people
Somebody
could.
could.
I mean, somebody could, that's my fear is that then we're gonna have this data and
Just
then,
one question, just with an email, would make them have to enter something that's different.
A lot of people want to be anonymous when they submit things.
I'm just worried.
I'll
we're gonna
ask
get bad
Sandra
data.
Jean if
Yeah, see if she
if
can.
it can be limited by any means. So I will ask that. But you know, I think having an effort just to get feedback is important, and I didn't want to go into it half cocked. So
Can you share this with the 3 cities and get them to share it with them?
I'll be happy to. Yeah.
Hopefully they can push it out there too.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. I think this has been on the discussion with the city of Georgetown for sure. I'm pretty confident of that. So before we move forward, we'll put this out, and I'll try to determine if there's any way to make sure submissions are from only one, like IP address or such. I don't know if that's possible.
Judge,
Is there anything else you all want to add or take away from that?
Well, like that number 8, I think it was, the one that was, what additional safety features? Like half that stuff is already listed in the law, like they already have to be licensed, they already have to have insurance, they already have to have a seat belt. There was another one that they already have to have, I can't
Here's
remember.
question number 7. I mean, we can just eliminate question number 7.
Or just leave it as an open answer,
Yeah, the comment.
yeah, like a comment, what else would,
Just make it open-ended.
open-ended, because a lot of that stuff is already required, I can't, insurance and,
Turn signals, brake lights, headlights,
yeah,
it's
all
all
that
on
stuff's already
there.
required.
But like operation, it can be daylight or night. I mean, it can be, and you have, like you said there, I mean, you have to have proof of insurance and vehicle inspection.
Already has to be registered, that was it.
Yeah, we'll just take that, take those options out and leave it for, if allowed, what restrictions or requirements would you support, and just leave it open-ended.
Then aren't already in Senate Bill 63. So, make them read it.
Yeah. So if there's nothing else, we'll make those changes and then get it pushed out this afternoon.
How long will we open? When will people have?
One day. No. We're gonna do it a week. Let's do it a week. Let's do it a week and see what kind of feedback we get.
I wouldn't do it, when we do surveys a lot of times, we do it on a Thursday, Friday, we're not gonna get these responses, you might wait for like a Monday.
Like wait till after the 4th of July to push it out.
I mean, if you wanna get more responsive, probably, I would bet.
I was just trying to have it where we could have conversation at the next meeting.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean,
No, I mean, tomorrow being the 4th of July,
a lot of people not have a
yeah,
computer or whatever.
yeah. So we'll, we went on, if we pushed it out today and then reposted it on Monday, that would give us, about a week. But,
Judge,
Yes, sir.
I think Mr. Smith mentioned this, that Ohio and West Virginia, Tennessee already have similar legislation already in place. And even, I think he said that some of the eastern counties in Kentucky have already started. So, I
Oh,
mean,
like,
rather than reinvent the wheel, we might ought to be
June
looking.
27th, well, KCO pushed out that model ordinance
Right.
that you've seen and you.
I have, yeah.
And
Got sort of a
but like,
basic graph.
I've seen where there's been several eastern Kentucky counties that on the
They're already on the
27th,
go, yeah.
it was ready to go.
I know.
David Livingston.
The eastern Kentucky counties that I've talked to have used that take-home ordinance without any changes to it. But I have concerns that the ordinance that's pushed out is just a draft ordinance, so it's very vague. So I think there's things that, as opposed to just throwing that one out there and voting on it, we need to look at what possible changes need to be made to it.
Yes, sir.
And
Well,
I was going to say this too, and I think David mentioned this last time, but Keiko's doing a webinar next Wednesday.
The
at
9th.
2 o'clock.
is that right? The 9th?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to sit in on that, but any of y'all can attend that if you want to. I think Rich Ornstein's going to be on there and some others.
Would you send that out so we could?
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
That'd be awesome.
All right. Well, David, we'll get this feedback, and then Cam will sit in on that webinar, and then we'll talk about this next Friday, and then try to share data, and then try to make next steps. Does that sound good to everybody? With that said, next item that we wanted to talk about was a proposal and a plan that Sheriff Nettles has been talking about, and feels like is something that would be a positive for his department. Sheriff, you've worked with Jeff some to kind of draft a draft policy, but can you talk about that random drug screening and policy and procedure? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is something that I've been in favor for a long time. Something I wanted to start it at our agency for a long time, and I think it's something that's needed. Holds us to a higher standard, which we should be held to. So with the help of Jeff and Captain Betson, we've met with Bluegrass Family Health, and we've started the random drug testing policy with our agency. All sworn employees will be subject to drug testing quarterly. 10% of our sworn deputies will be tested.
Every 3 months, what?
Five.
5, 6.
Yeah, about 5 deputies every 3 months.
But it's just that having that in place, and it's just, in my opinion, just a commitment that shares with the community that you're committed to having.
100%. I don't believe there's any issues within our agency,
Yeah.
but I just think it's something that we should be held to that standard.
Yeah.
So you have businesses and factories that drug test. We should be held to a higher standard.
Don't most of the other agencies, I know Lexington does this, right?
Lexington does, Georgetown does.
Okay.
Just something that we've never done and something I thought that was needed.
Right.
Questions?
Yeah, so do we get into any issues, this is really for Cam, for legality purposes of the SO, a county employee is going to be randomly drug tested, but then somebody, fire department, animal control, whatever department is not going to be drug tested? Are we getting ourselves into a position? I'm not against what you're saying.
Well, he's a constitutional officer.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think so.
And my opinion is would this be a good pilot for us to consider across? Now, JR's team, road department, because of the CDL requirement, there is a segment that all of them are part of as well, right, Joe? So, so I think let's roll this out, see how it goes, and then is this something that needs to be considered?
Are those only two? Road department and SO, the only two that are
Road
now?
department right now,
Not the jail.
I don't think so.
Does EMS?
No.
I mean, I think that's something that we should look at.
Or fire.
For at least the world I come from, anybody that has access to narcotics is randomly drug tested, right? I mean, that's, because you all have access to narcs, right? I mean, that's a standard thing in the world that I come from.
And if it's the pleasure of the court to consider expanding this pilot to other agencies, then certainly can look at it, but, take one bite at a time usually and see how it goes.
No, I expect no issues with our agency. We've covered a lot of the issues that may arise. Our third shift deputies being tested. Business health opens at 7 a.m., so we'll pay them the overtime to stay after shift and get tested. So, no, I think it'll be a good thing.
Does it have, and I don't know that we know this answer, we were just talking down here, what about medical marijuana? So if somebody has a medical marijuana card, is that,
They probably wouldn't be allowed to be a officer.
I don't know how that plays in with anything that we do.
It's just still illegal federally, and so we do not allow it within our agency.
Okay.
Hardest thing is being, Joe Pat and I have done a lot of these over the years, just with
I've
students
spent-
and athletes, and
Yes.
and
I've
spent
spent
hours waiting on people to
hours
pee.
Sitting
I
with
mean,
a
it's
kid,
forever.
like I'm sitting with a kid, and we've screened 25 kids, and you've got one kid. I just can't go, Mr. Covington. And me and Dwayne are just sitting there. I gotta go drink more water. Drink more water.
Is that gonna be
Yeah.
you?
But if the court wants to expand this, then
I think we go with this.
yeah,
I mean, I agree, one bite at a time.
yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Let's do this for a quarter and
What's
see
the
how it
budgetary
goes.
Maybe
impact?
us too.
How much does it cost? I just want to know budgetarily wise, what's it cost to just even do SO this?
If I remember correctly, wasn't it around $40 for a screening? It's surprisingly affordable.
$30-40 per
test,
per
yes.
test, and we're doing,
We're doing about 20 a year.
Yeah.
no, so,
So
Well-
five quarterly, yeah.
And the testing rate is 10% for alcohol and 20% for drugs, though. So really, it's a few more people than possibly
In
would
the
be.
panel, on the drug side, Dwayne, it would pick up marijuana, it'll pick up opioids, it'll pick up synthetic. I mean, it's a,
Now, the only thing it won't probably do is, you got that Delta stuff and
Delta
the grocery store stuff nowadays, that it won't, I don't think. Like the Creighton and,
No, I don't think it will that, no.
all that crazy stuff.
so,
So that's what they're worried about in the factories a lot right now.
Really?
Is the drugstore, Creighton.
but
Yeah.
Jeff, your recommendation is that the court consider this as a policy. The sheriff's department can institute this independently, but I think it'd be good for the fiscal court to support it and approve it, to put it into the administrative code. Is that your opinion as well?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think this is a good place to start. Like I said, we've already doing it with JR's group, with the CDL drivers. It just adds more credibility and integrity to the operations that, people are not under the influence of alcohol and drugs, and because they're in safety-sensitive roles, protecting the community. And I could see maybe in time, but of course we haven't talked with any of the department directors or the chiefs of the other departments, and just seeing if we can roll this out to other departments at a later date, so.
so your suggestion would just be safety-sensitive roles across
Yes.
government?
I mean, I think that's definitely a place to start, right? I mean, they're out, I'm not saying you couldn't even include anybody in an administrative assistant type role. I mean, but definitely I would want to have priority on those safety-sensitive roles.
And I agree. That's a place to start. Any other questions or comments?
So what'll happen if, say, marijuana becomes legal? What'll happen then?
Deal with that then.
I mean, you mentioned alcohol, which is already legal. I don't know how we can restrict somebody from drinking, as long as they're not, we know if they're doing it on a job or not, but we can't restrict them while they're on their time off. I'm just wondering, if marijuana becomes legal, which I feel like it will in a few short years,
Yeah.
what do we do then?
Well, I'll speak out loud here, or think out loud here, I guess. The question is you know, do you have traces in your system, or are you under the influence, right? Is that the challenge
That
you run
is.
with marijuana?
I mean, we're trained to know if someone's under the influence, to know if they're to a certain level. But I can't see marijuana ever being accepted within our line of work.
I agree.
I kind of agree.
Yeah.
So, if there's no other questions, and my proposal is to bring this back to the court on Friday at our next meeting for your all's review and consideration, and then move forward with putting it in place as a pilot, and then we come back and talk about next steps with possibly other departments. Any other comments? Thank you all. I'm going to ask Cam now to share just about email that he shared. There are 3 action items that we have to address, and related to the opioid settlement process. And before he goes into the details, I've talked to a couple other judges and also about what they're doing. And one other call that needs to be made, and I'm in the process of doing so, is reaching out to Attorney General Coleman in his office to get any feedback, because I don't know if you remember it, you know, Attorney General Coleman negotiated on the Kroger settlement for essentially a better outcome for counties and other municipalities. So I want to make sure we have input from them before we move forward, but I'll let Cam discuss this.
Well, thanks, Judge. I don't have a whole lot to add. You know, Judge Covington and myself and Michelle, we get these emails pretty regularly from our opioid litigation attorneys, and generally they're updates on what's going on. But I got one a week ago that, you know, said that action items are needed on these 3 things that the judge just mentioned, and that's not just from us, but from every governmental entity that's taken part in this litigation. So that's all across the country, I guess. There were 3 items that they recommended. The first is there's a Purdue Pharma bankruptcy and Sackler settlement to the tune of about $8 billion. And they need each jurisdiction to vote on yes or no that we approve that settlement. And then once you all vote, then I send them an email saying what you did or what you didn't. They're recommending everybody, you know, vote to approve it. They think it's a good settlement. They're also wanting the county to sign what's called a governmental entity settlement agreement with Sackler to release Sackler and receive Sackler settlement funds. So that's just a document you all would need to vote to authorize Joe Pat to sign that via DocuSign. And then there's another settlement that's referenced in the emails for $1.2 billion with 9 additional smaller opioid defendants, and they need to know if we're wanting to participate in that. So those are 3 items that we need to vote on. I agree with Judge Covington in that I think we need to get feedback from the AG's office, and I've also emailed the opioid coordinator with KCO. I think she's on vacation this week, so hopefully I'll get with her next week, but want to make sure they're recommending, you know, counties go forward with this. I assume their recommendation is going to be, yeah, we need to do this, but don't want to do it without hearing back. Speaking of links that are fun to read, there's memorandums that sort of explain what those settlements are that I've attached, and they're each maybe 8 or 10 pages. And if you want to really get into the weeds, there's hundreds of pages that you can read, but anyway, that's kind of what it is.
Questions?
Any anticipated amount of money that will be?
That's a great question, and I don't know. Probably the KCO coordinator. That'd be a good question I can ask her.
They've not shared any that I saw.
Due to fluctuation, the state's not even participating.
Yeah, we can't. We can't tell you. That's some lawyer talk right there. That's correct. Yeah, there's no, it's not rushed, but just wanted to put it on the radar. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Next item, we posted on social media opportunity for a position on the Ethics Commission, and I've received 4 applications, and I will be sharing those by email for you all to review. And, you know, the ethics ordinance, that committee only meets if there is a issue that is requested to be addressed. So that is not a busy, by nature, usually a very busy committee. I will share those names and those applications, and that'll be on the agenda for next Friday. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. I'll be happy to try to answer them. Next item, might call on Sheriff Nettles and JR but we have, earlier this week, we did a basement punch walkthrough at the new sheriff's office project, and you know, there was a lot of items that are being addressed. It's much closer than it was. One of the big items was the fire alarm that was still an issue that was getting handled. Jeremy, JR, do y'all have any additional information on that fire alarm? Did they get it active?
I believe so. They've been there all week.
Yeah. Okay. And then upstairs, the punch list, they were addressing painting, addressing a lot of the issues that were brought up on the first punch list walkthrough. But since then, it's been cleaned. Furniture from Kentucky Correctional Industries that were purchased for the office has been moved in and installed. We're waiting on the 8th for the other vendor that has furniture for the clerk's office and the clerk's desks, and then also for the sheriff's office, the clerks on September 8th, they'll move in. So I'm very optimistic that here in the next 2 weeks that we could maybe make that transition from North Hamilton and from here to you know, get those offices up and running, and then you know, active. So JR, Sheriff Nettles, y'all want to make any additional comments?
No, it's coming together. Like you said, all the furniture was delivered from KCI on Tuesday. They completed delivery. It looks good.
Yeah. Rebecca, would you like to make any comment?
I'll just say I went out there recently, and we're really happy with that space in the basement. It's finished, painted. I thought it would have an industrial look overhead, which was fine, but it's painted. It looks, you know, crisp and clean, and that's gonna be a great space to use.
No, and I agree with you. I was like, after they painted it, it kind of changed the whole thing, and it looks very clean and accessible. You know, you got the elevator, but for us to be able to have that space for a voting center and then still have the library access, hopefully, it takes off like pressure from having to like go, you know, call on the schools. The schools, it's very, you know, as Dwayne will tell you, it's tough to try to do something when you're having session. So us having that space, I just think gives more people opportunities to get in and vote. I actually think that the community room can also serve as a voting area potentially as well, or if you want to use that as a staging area or such when we do primaries and general elections. But us having control of that and having it as an option is very, and I think it's got great parking, great access. So having that in the library will make voting in Scott County a more convenient matter. So any questions or comments about that project?
I had one question for Jeremy. So if I buy a vehicle, a truck, and I need to get it inspected, and let's say it's raining or snowing or whatever, will you all be doing those inspections? I got this question, in the Sally Port, or would you all be doing it out in the parking lot when it's raining, or?
We have a couple options. We can do them out in the parking lot, or I would recommend we would hopefully be able to team up with the clerks and be able to use their awning, their drive-through awning,
Okay.
and have them pull through there.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Not on this topic, but I didn't see Clerk Johnson earlier, but I was just wondering if you had, going back to the street legal vehicles, have y'all had anybody come, and just wondering if you had anybody register anything?
As far as I haven't checked within the last few days, but, we didn't have a big rush on that first day. We had maybe a couple of inquiries.
So you have had some inquiries?
Some
Yeah.
counties have done that. I got word some counties did find that the system worked to allow that to move forward.
Oh, so it was good?
The process worked, as far as I know. We've not had a lot of activity, but I think as we talked about before, some of those more eastern, counties, who were already have a big trail system, looking at that as tourism. You know, they didn't already, I think they had more activity with that. But I think it'll come along. I would really hope that our residents are kind of waiting to see how it all pans out, how it comes together. And personally, like I said, I would want to know if I owned one of those vehicles, I would want to know if there would be a property tax assessed if I did that. I'd want to consider that before I license and registered, considering how much I intended to use that, on the roads. I'd want to know if that was now going to be assessed with property tax. So if I had, a comment on that, I would say, maybe hold off and let's see, give that a little time and, but I guess it's going well for those counties that move forward.
Thank you.
What was the timeline they were talking about where the two different
Rebecca,
departments were going to
I'm
choose?
sorry to interrupt Dwayne, but Chip says that you can't hear, if you'd come up to the podium so people could hear online.
So repeat everything.
Dwayne, what was your question?
My question was, in the earlier meeting, you talked about like the two different agencies fighting over who's going to get the revenue or not. When are they going to make that decision? Have they said they're a date? No, okay.
No, I don't know of any date, except that I mentioned January 1st. That's when assessment happens on all vehicles. So that, it has been identified, or it's been acknowledged, that really needs to be hashed out before
then.
January 1. So that would be my anticipation, that'll be worked out by that time. But yeah, as I said, Department of Revenue looked at it and said, well, if these are street-worthy vehicles, there'll be a tax assessment. And, and so then there was some debate. I heard legislators, or from the legislative end saying, well, that wasn't the intention. We didn't do this intending for it to be another item for taxation. We did it more so from a tourism aspect. So.
Well, thank you. Any other questions? With that said, then I'm going to give you all an update on EMS office, and we've been active out of the EMS office for over a week. Uriah has been, and the whole team, but I've been in touch with Uriah quite a bit, and tip your hat and special thanks to the whole team at EMS to get all the equipment, all the training supplies, all the the trucks, everything in there, and to a point where you can operate. We've got some temporary bunks in there that we're waiting on, some bunks and furniture from Kentucky Correctionals Industries there, but office furniture is all in. Big thing that I'm very proud of, the training room is functional. We're waiting on the divider, so that'll, you all have training, Battalion Chief Osterman, you all have training coming up for a new paramedic class, 14th, I think.
We have the paramedic, the next cohort will start August 19th.
August 19th. I thought something was starting here in the middle of July, though.
Should I get up?
Sure, sure.
Just to try and save you another chip message. So we currently have an advanced EMT program running that started at the beginning of June. And so that was kind of chaotic running class with the move. We have a pinning ceremony July 18th for our second paramedic cohort they've all pretty much all wrapped up. That'll be, I believe, July 18th at 6 p.m. and it'll be in our big training room at the new station. We have 5 employees that should be all wrapping that up shortly, and several of them have already completed their capstone, and they'll be taking their national exams like in the next week or two. So soon to have more paramedics.
Do you have any idea about the new cohort of paramedic certification classes?
So the last communications we had with the program director, they're doing information sessions. It's looking like, I believe we have 10 in the next cohort. And then they're also doing, BCTC is offering a online paramedic program where the learners don't come into class every day, but they will come in twice a month for lab skills. And so it's the second and fourth Wednesday of the month, we'll have the online paramedic students that kind of affiliate with the Georgetown campus coming in, doing lab skills in our building as well, alongside our EMT program that'll start in August with our next batch of students. That we'll also offer, County Fire is going to be sending us some folks. We presently, for that, have 24 registrations right now. So,
any other questions for?
So we're doing outside paramedics as well? Am I understanding that?
The BCTC program, like anybody can register through BCTC and get the training through our program with us. It's a collaborative partnership between BCTC and our department.
it saves us a lot of the administrative overhead of running a paramedic program by working with BCTC.
Did they get that medication room AC figured out? No,
So
that was
I've-
a thing last week.
So Uriah and I have met there, and I've had conversations with one contractor. The contractor that actually did the work is going to submit a bid outside of the contract, just independent. So we're looking at trying to get 2 or 3 estimates. There might, instead of a split, one contractor has suggested just putting in a heat pump, essentially, right there on the outside of the bay there, on the inside, and letting it vent out into the bay instead of a split. The concern I have is that, those splits have to have pumps that pump that water, and those pumps fail quite a bit is what I understand. I just hate the idea of that. But the other ideal, and I haven't asked Uriah yet, is if could we buy a lockable refrigerator? The room's locked already. It's secured because of the narcotics. But could we put a bigger refrigerator in there and put those drugs in a refrigerated environment as an option?
Don't a judge?
It's not necessarily that they have to be.
Come on up here, Uriah.
It's not necessarily that they have to be refrigerated, they just have to be at a more controlled temperature, so we can certainly look at options for that, but, I've had 2, individuals come and take a look at it, and they're working on quotes. It's just, taking it day by day, so.
Yeah. Would you have a question?
I do, or a comment. So I went over a week or so ago and looked around. In that room, they only have heat available.
We've got one of those.
And it's an electric ceiling heat.
Yeah.
It's not tied into the building system at all.
And this room has double doors that open up to the bay. It's right off the bay. Mm-hmm. And that's...
Well, I was wondering I'm not really an HVAC guy, but I see a lot of it done, but don't understand why they couldn't tie into the existing HVAC system. Because what Uriah's talking about, in my view, that room is stale. There's no air moving. When the doors are closed, you don't even really get a room temperature. In the summertime, you get whatever's going on in there. And I think the medication, even if it doesn't need to be refrigerated, it needs to be at a lower, acclimated temperature. But that's not happening. It's pretty stale when you open the door.
Right. Ideally, if it could get tied into the HVAC system.
And maybe it can't be. I don't know that answer. That would have to be talking to the design team or somebody.
That would be the long-term solution.
Well, what was
however.
presented was a split as the best, but
Who
I can go back
presented
and
that?
ask Rick.
Who presented that? Just a contractor?
Ian from Branstetter Carroll asked the contractor to
Give you an idea.
give us a proposal.
Where would the split, where would the outside, where would the air handler sit though? Would they run it all the way to the back of the building?
So their suggestion was to go to the roof.
So a mini split, you put part of it goes in the room, typically over the door, and then it's just refrigerant lines going to the outside unit, which can go on the roof, it could go on the exterior wall, but that's the front of the building, or that's the bay.
So they're concerned with the mini split going to the roof is, like Judge was alluding to, that you have to put a pump and
Condensate pump.
They say that they have to be replaced quite often. But, short of it going to the roof, it creates kind of an eyesore because where the room is located, it's at the front of the building. And we really don't want anything on
We're not going to do that.
Right.
Can I stop by after this meeting?
Absolutely.
Could you move the medication room? I mean, I know it's not ideal, so I don't hear, I'm not saying this lightly, but could you move it to a different location?
There's nowhere in the building that we would be able to move it because, it's the office space and then of course all the training rooms. I just don't know.
We can
where
figure something out.
Where we would be able to.
There's a way to do it. There's got to be a way to do
We'll continue looking at options and then, but, it's made, that storage room was made just to have, really immediate access so you can supply the ambulance.
Right.
In the bay.
Right, and keep everything locked up and because that is, where we store narcotics and whatever else, and it's, that's what it was intended for.
Any update on the whole blood program? Is it going pretty well?
Yeah, it's going in fact, John, if you wanna.
I'll talk some more about that. So, the Battalion Chief Matt Martin is really kind of running that, and really our point person for it. We've yet to administer. We've not had any cases that require
and that's good.
And that's great. Yeah, exactly. But we've made several swaps with KBC. We actually this afternoon are going to swap our blood out again. But we've had no wastage, no inappropriate utilizations, and we're eagerly looking forward to using it in the most humane of ways.
Gotcha.
Cool.
We'll move from EMS if there's no other questions. Yes, sir.
One other thing for EMS. So we will probably come in, I think, the next fiscal court meeting talking about looking to bring on 3 more part-time educators with our training side of the house. So I invited one of them to kind of just talk a little bit about what we're doing, but we've definitely been growing the capabilities of our department. That means more training, and so a opportunity presented itself to partner, or not partner, but bring in some educators that have some absolute expertise in the fields we're kind of expanding into. And so David Pfeiffer is going to talk just a little bit about this. He's one of the people we're looking to bring along as a part-time educator. And this would be in a similar role as what we have currently brought some folks in that they work very part-time on the education side of the house. There's the opportunity for them to get clinically credentialed so they could still go out and do some patient contact, but they wouldn't be relied on as frontline ambulance staff. Their principal role is the education side of the house. Just with everything we're doing, this really helps on the education side be able to do everything excellently. So, David, if you want to talk a bit about what we're doing.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak briefly. So my name is David Pfeiffer, and my full-time job, I'm a paramedic professor at EKU. Been a paramedic for many, many years here in Kentucky. The relationship or the proposal to maybe bring myself and a couple of other people on as educators also relates to trying to leverage the resources and skills of Georgetown Scott County EMS for the state police air rescue program. So by way of a little bit of history, because I know that's probably a little bit out of left field. About 10 years ago, I formed an organization called Red Star, Red River Gorge Special Treatment Access and Rescue Team. And we formed that because Powell County, which is about half of the Red River Gorge, had these wilderness calls. They were very resource intensive, fairly expensive, and Powell County did not have the resources themselves to be able to address those calls adequately. So, very long story short, we arrived at the solution of forming a nonprofit called Red Star, and we served as contractors to Powell County Fiscal Court for their wilderness rescue needs in the Red River Gorge. So we all became credentialed Powell County paramedics. That relationship went very well for about 10 years, and out of that grew 3 of us from that Red Star program becoming helicopter rescue technicians for the state police. So they have a Huey based in Frankfurt, has a hoist on it, and we started training to be able to do hoist rescues out of the Red River Gorge. That then grew into a statewide program. So although that was through Powell County for the EMS credentialing piece of it, we are the primary paramedics for the Kentucky State Police Air Rescue Program. Red Star's relationship with Powell County ended a few months ago, and that basically took that patient care capability away from that Kentucky State Police program. So we've been exploring many different options or avenues for how to basically restore that patient care capability and allow the state police to continue to provide that medical care to patients who they rescue on that helicopter. And in the midst of those conversations, the idea was brought forward to maybe partner with Georgetown Scott County EMS to achieve that goal. So Red Star has a long-standing relationship with your county EMS department. We have provided training to members of the SORT team, Special Operations team here, and a couple of Georgetown ambulance employees, Scott County ambulance employees, have been long-standing Red Star members as well. So we've had this long-standing relationship, and of course, you also now have that whole blood capability. That makes Scott County EMS the closest agency to the state police hangar that would be able to potentially supply whole blood. And when we talk about hoist rescue out of that Huey, it's really patients who are in the most sort of extreme environments and some of the sickest patients. So patients who've fallen off of cliffs in the middle of the woods, patients who are in hunting accidents, UTV, ATV accidents, very far out into remote areas. So the idea of being able to bring that blood capability onto that helicopter and then deliver it, to those patients at the end of that hoist cable is, very, very attractive. So the idea would be that Georgetown Scott County EMS would credential myself and the 2 other individuals to be able to continue providing patient care to the state police air rescue program. And basically in exchange, the county ambulance service here would receive a significant training benefit. All of the expertise that we have developed in that program, both in state police and Red Star, we'd now be able to make available to the special operations personnel here in the county ambulance service. Red Star typically charges something like $1,000 a head for the specialized training that we offer. We would be offering that same level and caliber and type of training as part-time educators directly to the ambulance service at a, of course, much reduced rate. And then also it just positions Scott County EMS and the SORT team to really sort of be at the table for a lot of things that are really starting to develop in the area of special operations and disaster response and wilderness medicine in Kentucky. there is a little bit of a consortium, confederation, I guess, of several different agencies that are all very active in this area. So agencies like Red Star, agencies in the Louisville area, agencies in Western Kentucky, that are all really starting to get really engaged in sort of developing this capability of going into very remote places to care for patients. And so it just sort of pulls Georgetown-Scott County Ambulance Service into that kind of community to help develop programs on a statewide basis. So that's the basic idea.
So will we be looking for a written proposal here in the future? Is that what would be
So our plan was bringing these 3 on as the part-time educators, and then clinically credentialing them so they would go through the same validation process for skills like we would do any other paramedic that we would hire. And that would then enable them to still meet that need with KSP, as well as we would get the training benefit of just them being educators like we currently get with the
So
other
if they
educators.
went to an air rescue, would they chart? Like, are they gonna bill? Because I think you know where I'm going with this, right?
Sure,
You're taking blood, you're taking our equipment, you're taking potentially, you're gonna have to take NARCs, if you're gonna be credentialed, you're gonna have to take all this, you're gonna have to have a medical director that's gonna approve it, but you're not gonna bill the patient, so then we ultimately would be paying 100% for all the supplies and everything else that would go out, pay for it back in, and I don't know what that would do with our liability. So like if you're a Georgetown-Scott County EMS credentialed, I'm in this world, something happens to the helicopter, what does that do for us also with our liability insurance? That's a completely different, because I know that you're volunteer there. There's just so many questions I have, and I don't know a lot of those. Maybe y'all do.
Well, the first thing that I would say Cam would recommend that that there'd be an MOU between us and the state police. I mean, that would answer a bunch of questions, I think, if we put it on paper.
What kind of an MOU did you have with Powell County? Did you have?
Yes, so I may be able to provide some insight on, I think, many of these questions. So I guess I'll start with the MOU. So yes, Red Star Incorporated, we're a nonprofit company here in Kentucky, registered with the Secretary of State's office and so forth. And then for the purposes of credentialing us clinically with Powell County, we did have an MOU. Well, frankly, it was a draft MOU. Part of the reason our relationship with Powell County did not continue is that we did have some challenges in tacking those things down. So that is a concern, would be certainly getting things really fleshed out in writing and making sure that were properly reviewed, and that was a source of stress for us. Yes, we had an MOU, if you will, for the services that we provided to Powell County. Because that MOU is in draft form, what we were actually operating under was several successive votes of their fiscal court to authorize different things. I can't speak for Kentucky State Police, of course, and so whatever MOU might need to exist between the county government and state police, I'd be on my skis here this morning if I commented on that sort of thing. But the votes that the Powell County Fiscal Court took when we had our relationship with that county included, they did cover our general liability, workers' comp, provided medical equipment to us to be able to offer those services. We are a independent corporation, so we do have some ability to pursue liability policies and workers' comp policies and so forth on our own. And we do carry a general liability policy for the training activities that we are engaged in right now. The billing issue, the state police program, if you'll forgive me for talking a little bit shop real quick, I know you're in the air medical business. We operate under Part 133 public safety exemptions rather than the Part 135 actual air medical regulations. What that means essentially is that the helicopter is really just a method of transporting a paramedic, such as myself, essentially from point A to point B, and the medical care that we provide is just incidental to the rescue. So it's not an air ambulance. It is correct, because we're not charging. Correct, and also we're not doing things like interfacility transfers or even scene flights. We really are only called when there's no other method of accessing the patient, including that a HEMS airframe cannot land where the patient is. So there really is actually not even a mechanism for the billing. There's no kind of like legal pathway, if you will, for that sort of bill. And the reality is, we don't consume that much medical supplies. We are called infrequently. We're really sort of in extremis, or sort of last resort, if you will. So it's not like we're out there, every day, every weekend, or anything like that, doing these rescues. They happen a few times a year. And I also don't want to, make commitments about things I'm not really authorized to direct, but just for awareness, there is funding that goes into the State Police Air Rescue Program from the state. And it would be for a state official, I think, to talk about reimbursement for supplies used and so forth, but I think there is a opportunity for a conversation along those lines.
So I would propose that, maybe in the next week or two, we try to put a proposal on paper and just line by line what needs to be done, and we can bring that to the court, let the court review that. And if it's their desire to move forward with that, then certainly do so.
Well, the state probably has a MO.
Yeah, and I'd like to see from
somebody.
CAECO what our liability would be for. That's my biggest. I'm not against this at all. There's just a lot of our job is to protect the county and the citizens, and there's a lot of liability things I'd have questions about that I think CAECO would have to answer.
So, Cam, can you help us with that? So.
And logistically, would a helicopter from Frankfurt come and land in Scott County to pick up the blood and then go to Powell County?
Potentially. This program is, just to clarify, it's at this point, it's statewide. It's not really tied to Powell County specifically. That was the origin of it, and but it's really now just I wear a patch on my shoulder, for example, that says Kentucky State Police, Air Rescue, right? So essentially, just a civilian volunteer paramedic for that program. And so, one possibility is that the helicopter lands here to retrieve that blood or hand off that blood. Potentially, somebody is responding from here, just across the county border, to the hangar in Frankfurt to drop off that blood. And again, I would say that blood, for example, there are considerable logistics involved with just the storage and delivery and so forth. That blood, again, fairly rare. Right? The majority of the patients that we rescue actually probably don't need that, treatment. But having that ability when a patient does need that makes all the difference in the world. I mean, it truly is just a life-saving intervention, right? So for the rare occasions when we have information to suggest that patient would benefit from that blood, we would, kind of just work out the brass tacks of how we would actually get that
I think
blood on
the
the
harder
helicopter.
part would be, honestly, I don't know at Georgetown, are narcotics on each ambulance, or does the medical one have?
Each ambulance.
That's your bigger thing. So how do they get, because if they're going to be Georgetown Scott County EMS, they have to operate our new Georgetown Scott County EMS protocols. It means they have to have everything they need to operate as Georgetown Scott County EMS. Blood, narcotics, fluid, just everything, right? I mean, you can't parcel out and say, when we go here, we're only going to do, you could go be basic, but then you're not taking blood, you're not taking the other things. It's they also have to figure out how they get narcotics take with them. I mean, there's a lot of logistical things when you get into that.
Yeah. So some of that we've already got sorted out. So when we do a disaster response, say when we went down to London after the tornadoes, we were in one of our ambulances, but we don't store narcotics in our backup ambulances. So we have kits ready to be checked out of our safe that are accounted for the whole time. That we checked out, we took down to London with us, we ended up not utilizing any, we brought it back, checked it back into the safe. And so,
But that would be like him coming and getting them, checking them out.
We
I'm just saying, there's, I'm with you.
We
I'm with
have the
you.
exact same concerns, when we're with Powell County, and of course, that's essentially an hour away from Frankfurt. So, the narcotics were certainly not being stored in my personal vehicle or anything like that. So, when we got that alert that there was a mission, and we, needed to access those drugs, we had a mechanism essentially for Powell County EMS, on-duty Powell County EMS personnel to retrieve them and then maybe sort of chase us, if you will, and meet us halfway and do that handoff. In other cases, because many of the missions are kind of out of the wilderness of eastern Kentucky, as the helicopter was, flying down to that region, we would land and go aboard with the drugs. I mean, sometimes it really just kind of came down to what were the details of the mission and what was the most effective way to get those supplies to the helicopter. And that is, that is a challenge that is easier, I think, when you have a agency like this one, which is very sophisticated, very highly developed, has a lot of the other things in place already to deliver high quality care on a daily basis routinely. Powell County EMS is a much smaller agency, and so being able to leverage everything that this county does have is part of the reason this is exciting to us.
Well, thank you for being here. We'll follow up and we'll go from there. Do want to talk about July 24th is a meeting night at 6, but could we set the 24th as a tentative date for a ribbon cutting at EMS and try to do a 4 o'clock ribbon cutting in the afternoon and then have court at 6? If you'll put that on your all's calendars, I'll follow up with EMS about availability and then invite our partners from the city, and then also look at making sure that our partners from Toyota who donated the land can have representatives there as well. So let's look at that at the 24th around 4 o'clock in the afternoon as a potential tentative date. And then Chief Ward, Chief Baker, can you remind us of the graduation time and date for our training crews, for our training candidates? And July 16th. 4 o'clock at the library. 4 o'clock library. I know y'all are excited about getting them on a truck. Appreciate that. Got parade tomorrow at 11 a.m. Is that correct, Chief? Anybody wants to truck parked down there on College?
They requested to be on College Street near Mulberry.
Yeah.
So we'll have to say
All right. I have no other business. Does anyone else have any business?
What time is this parade?
11 a.m. tomorrow.
Parade also in Stamping Ground at 6.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, early bird.
Yeah. But if there's no other business from anyone, all right.
We've got billing this for EMS. We got the bids in, I believe Stacy sent that out.
There's only one.
Yeah.
And Natalie and the team from EMS is reviewing that and don't have any feedback on it
Is
yet.
that the current biller, the billing folks we have, or is that a different?
Different.
Okay, all right, that was my main question. And then on June 18th, we had storms. I wasn't here at the last meeting. I just want to thank JR and his crew for getting out there, and trees are blown over, and they did a great job of getting everything cleaned up. And constituents have called me and thanking you all for everything you do. It's normal, so we appreciate that. That's it.
All right, thank you. Rick?
I was contacted last night by, excuse me, by a constituent that knows, I think, a young lady. I do not know her. She has apparently recently been treated with the net device, and this young lady would like to come next Friday and speak to the court.
We'll put her on during their business.
And so I told them I told this person I thought you would, so they've got it on their calendar. So
All right.
she's apparently excited to come and speak to the court, so.
Thank you. Rob?
Remind everybody about the Holding Fleming email, picnic with the planner
Picnic with a
at
planner.
Ward
It's
Hall
next week.
for historic preservation,
Yeah.
July the 8th, 5 to 8.
All right, July 8th, 5 to 8. And you need to RSVP to him, right?
Did I say it on?
It's not, doesn't say that you have
Doesn't
to-
say? All right. Thanks for sharing that.
It's open
Anything
to the
else?
public, I think, yeah.
Well, if there's no other business, then we will conclude this workshop and have a safe weekend.